Crown on fire, Princess Leonor's veil choice shocks all royal houses. The world expected elegance, tradition, and predictable royal symbolism. That's what always happens before a major royal wedding or debut moment. Europeans wait to see the dress, the veil, and the message behind it. It's a familiar ritual, a comfortable expectation. Everyone thought Princess Leonor of Spain would follow the same script. A quiet veil, a respectful nod to history, a safe choice that keeps the peace within royal families. But everything changed in a single moment. Because when Leonor finally stepped into public view wearing the veil she personally chose, something happened that nobody saw coming. A collective gasp, a moment of disbelief, a ripple of shock that passed not just through Spain and Denmark, but across every royal household in Europe. And here is the twist that blew the doors wide open. The veil that Princess Leonor chose wasn't just unusual. It wasn't just bold. It carried a message so powerful, so disruptive, and so emotionally charged that insiders now say it has permanently altered the dynamics of modern royalty. The veil wasn't just fabric. It was a thunderbolt, a symbolic declaration that rewrote what a future queen can do, say, or represent. This is the story behind that veil. Why it shocked the royal world. Why it divided families. Why some courtiers whispered that Leonor had taken the most dangerous risk of her life. And why, despite all of it, this moment is being celebrated as the most defining gesture of Spain's future queen. From here on, nothing will be the same. The truth is, the veil was not just a fashion choice. It was a statement, a message wrapped in tradition but aimed directly at the future. And to understand the explosion that followed, we need to go back to the early conversations between Spain and Denmark, long before the cameras started rolling. Inside the royal planning rooms in Copenhagen, stylists and advisors had prepared a series of traditional options for Leonor. Veils inspired by Queen Sofia. Veils used in historical Spanish coronations. Veils tracing the lineage of Denmark's own queens. Every single one represented stability and continuity. But Leonor declined them all. Weeks before the final decision was announced, a quiet tension grew between the two royal houses. Spain insisted that Leonor choose something meaningful, something true to her identity as the future Queen of Spain. Denmark leaned gently toward a more neutral choice, a diplomatic veil, elegant and safe. Leonor listened to all sides, and then surprised everyone. She chose a veil that blended modernity with a coded message. A veil that symbolized independence, power, renewal, and unity. And here's where the shock began. The veil contained patterns and design elements not seen in any royal ceremony for decades. Some of the motifs referenced the earliest queens of Asturias. Others referenced female leadership, renewal of monarchy, and a break from old limitations. But the most explosive part, a subtle design honoring a woman from Spain's past who had been considered too controversial for royal symbolism. This wasn't random. Leonor knew exactly what she was doing. The moment came when she stepped into the hall in Copenhagen. The fabric flowed behind her like a moving storybook. Lights hit the delicate embroidery, revealing patterns that royal insiders immediately recognized. Phones went up. The press froze. Even the Danish royal family exchanged glances. You could read the surprise in their faces, even through perfected royal composure. And instantly, a chain reaction began. Royal commentators rushed to decode the veil. Spanish historians began analyzing the patterns frame by frame. Danish protocol staff whispered among themselves, wondering how such symbolism made it through without a diplomatic meltdown. Young Europeans flooded social media praising Leonor's confidence. Older traditionalists reacted with discomfort, even outrage. And this is where the deeper story begins. Because Leonor's veil wasn't simply rebellious. It wasn't reckless. It was calculated with precision. She had chosen a veil that acknowledged centuries of royal tradition, but refused to be boxed in by it. A veil that honored Spain, respected Denmark, and still showcased her independence as a rising leader. This single act reflects how Leonor sees her future. Not as a passive queen in waiting, but as a voice, a presence, and a force shaping a new generation of monarchy. But the veil also revealed something else beyond style or symbolism, the evolving relationship between Leonor and Prince Christian. Denmark's crown prince stood beside her with a calm but protective presence. Watching the footage, you can see it, he understood her choice. He stood behind it, not because it was convenient, but because it was hers. That moment told the public more than any palace press release ever could. It showed unity not based on duty, but on partnership. And that alone was revolutionary for both royal houses. The reaction behind palace doors, however, was mixed. Some advisors in Denmark reportedly felt blindsided. The Veil's references to past Spanish queens who had challenged norms felt too strong, too political, too reminiscent of old controversies. They feared this would overshadow the ceremony itself. Spain, on the other hand, was divided. Younger Spaniards celebrated Leonor's boldness as the emergence of a modern queen who speaks with symbolism. Older members of the royal machinery felt anxious, worried that Leonor was stepping into a spotlight too powerful, too fast. But through all this, Leonor remained unfazed. She knew the Veil would spark conversation. She expected criticism. She accepted the risk. Why? Because the Veil wasn't chosen to shock Europe. It was chosen to remind Europe who she truly is, a leader shaped by Spain's history, but unafraid to define her own path. As reactions poured in, one thing became clear: her veil had become the centerpiece of a larger debate about monarchy in 2025. Is royalty meant to remain frozen in tradition? Or is it meant to grow and evolve with modern society? Leonor answered that question without speaking a single word. The Veil also sent a ripple through international observers. Royal houses across Europe privately analyzed the situation, some worried that Leonor's symbolism would challenge their own traditions. Others admired her bravery, seeing it as a sign that monarchy could survive by adapting. All while Leonor maintained her calm, her poise, and her quiet strength. She let the world talk. She let historians dissect the patterns. She let commentators argue. She had already said everything through the lace she carried on her shoulders. Hours after the ceremony, when the first official photos were released, the conversation intensified. Experts zoomed in on the hidden motifs. One symbol in the Veil suggested unity between Northern and Southern Europe, a poetic nod to her future in Denmark. Another symbol referenced a forgotten feminist figure in Spanish history. Another wove in themes of destiny and crown transition. It wasn't just a veil. It was a manifesto stitched in silk. But the emotional heart of the moment came through one unexpected detail: a tiny embroidered crown near the lower edge, almost unnoticeable unless you looked closely. It wasn't the Danish crown. It wasn't the traditional Spanish crown. It was a stylized version, modern, clean, almost abstract. Symbolizing a crown transformed. A crown on fire. Not burning in destruction, but burning with renewal. And that is why the world reacted the way it did. Leonor's veil was a visual declaration that monarchy can be reimagined, rebuilt, and reignited. And she is not waiting for her coronation to begin that transformation. This decision will be studied for decades. Fashion analysts will praise it. Traditionalists will critique it. Historians will decode it. Royal watchers will connect it to Leonor's growing influence. But ordinary people saw something simple yet powerful: a young woman stepping into her destiny with courage. Princess Leonor didn't set out to shock all royals. She set out to represent herself. And in doing so, she changed the conversation around royalty in 2025. The crown was watching. And the crown was changed.